Well, here we are, guys. We are now coming up to the end of the Football League seasons in England. It's getting now to we're there, right? Some of the non-league campaigns have now completed. Others are very close to completion, and even the Premier League, there's only a few matches left to play. So let's just do a quick little dive down into the scores that happened over the past week, and then we'll go into the big details. So we started off with a 5-0 win of Nottingham Forest over Sunderland, a big shock. The relegation threatened Nottingham Forest, beating Sunderland, who have been doing really well, beating them 5-0. In the Championship, already relegated Leicester City, getting a 1-1 draw with Millwall. Not really a great point for Millwall either. It was no one was happy in that match. Then we moved on into Saturday. We started off with an FA Cup semi-final. Manchester City winning that semi-final. They are through to the FA Cup final. Will be played next month. Impressive stuff for them. Then in the Premier League, we had shocks. In fact, we had shocks everywhere. Aston Villa losing to Fulham. You know, Aston Villa that are trying to get near the top four, losing to Fulham. Liverpool beating Crystal Palace. Surprisingly, that is also a shock. Crystal Palace have actually been Liverpool's bogey team. So for them to get a win, for Isak to get a goal, for Wirtz to get a goal, good day. Good day. West Ham and Tottenham Hotspur, they had some absolute fun between them. Obviously, they're fighting over the relegation places. West Ham had the advantage, 1-0 lead. Then Tottenham Hotspur scored a goal. Then immediately after Tottenham Hotspur scored a goal, Everton got an equaliser, so it was in Tottenham Hotspur's favour. And then in the final minute, West Ham scored. It was whiplash, for want of a better word. And then Arsenal getting a win over Newcastle United as well. Really important for them and their title charge. We also had shocks in the Championship as well. Hull City getting a loss against Charlton Athletic. That was a shock. Middlesbrough beating Watford 5-1. That was impressive for them. Another shock for us was that Ipswich Town didn't beat West Brom. It was a 0-0 draw. Birmingham City versus Bristol City and Norwich City versus Swansea City. Playing a bit for pride. There's not really much in it. They're already confirmed that they're going to stay in the Championship. They're not going to get promoted. They're not going to get relegated. However, Oxford United are going to be relegated. We'll confirm that in the tables, even though they beat Sheffield Wednesday 4-1. Derby County doing really well for themselves with the 3-2 victory over QPR. Preston North End was also a bit of a Ted rubber, even though they beat Sheffield United, and then Portsmouth beating Stoke City. And then on the Sunday, we had another FA Cup semi-final, Chelsea versus Leeds United, and Chelsea won. So it's Manchester City versus Chelsea in the FA Cup final. And by the way, Callum McFarlane, I want to say this. A lot of people have been downplaying him. His record for Chelsea is pretty good. Draw against Manchester City in December, and I think he got another draw, and then, FA Cup final for him now. Impressive stuff. And then Coventry City versus Wrexham, it was a bit of a trophy lift for Coventry City. They did well. Wrexham played their part, but yeah, it was in their favour. And on the Monday, Manchester United versus Brentford, 2-1 victory for them. It was a tight match at the end, but Manchester United had it in the bag, to be quite honest. I hate to say. Then on the Tuesday, we had PSG versus Bayern Munich, a 5-4 victory for PSG. We'll talk a little bit about this to a certain extent soon. But yeah, and then in the Championship, Southampton versus Ipswich Town, a 2-2 draw. Didn't really help either of them. Again. On the Wednesday, we had Atletico Madrid versus Arsenal, a 1-1 draw for those guys. And yeah, there's controversy aside, but that's not going to be discussed in this video because there's other things we need to discuss in this video. So then in terms of the tables, we're going to start from League 2 and work our way upwards because there's some stuff we need to talk about in the Premier League, and I want to leave that as a good segue, basically, and how this works. So we start off with the bottom of League 2, and we've got a fight on our hands because Barrow pretty much confirmed. Almost forgot. 45 games played. There's one game left to play, so there's only 3 points left to play for. So Barrow are almost relegated. There is a small chance, the way that the points could work, that they could end up out of the bottom two, but it looks unlikely, especially when it comes to their goal difference. They would have to beat someone basically 10-0, and it looks unlikely. However, for Harrogate, for Crawley, for Newport County, and for Tranmere Rovers, they are all battling to not be the team in 23rd. And here's the thing. You could be looking at that and going, oh, Tranmere Rovers, they're fine. But actually, they're the ones at risk. Take a look at that last match. Harrogate Town, their last match, they got a win. Crawley Town, their last match, they got a draw. Newport County, their last match, they got a win. Tranmere Rovers, a loss. And here's the thing, their goal difference means that, yes, they are at risk. If they were to replicate those results in this last match, a win for Harrogate, a draw for Crawley, a win for Newport, a loss to Tranmere Rovers, Tranmere Rovers will be the ones in 23rd. It is a close fight, a close battle, and it will be interesting to see who will be the one that doesn't survive. In terms of the top, we still have a lot to play for as well, because yes, MK Dons, Milton Keynes Dons, they are top of the table, 85 points. It's basically a battle between them and Bromley for the title, between themselves. However, when it comes to that third promotion spot, yeah, there's 3 promotion spots for some reason in the league. It's still a battle. Cambridge United, Salford City, Notts County, all of them could end up in that third place. And then when it comes to 4th to 7th, those playoff rounds, well, we are even including Barnet in this. A lot to play for, and again, have a look at those. It's almost a who blinks first situation. Swindon Town sort of did blink first, but Swindon and Barnet have got just as much of a chance to get into the top 7 as anyone else. So really, really interesting to see when it comes to League 2. Moving up to League 1, almost everything's confirmed. We've got a little battle going on between Exeter City and Leyton Orient. Exeter City do need to win, and Leyton Orient do need to lose, but in terms of the last match, Leyton Orient would have held up that end of the bargain. So it's really up between them to sort that out. But yeah, it basically requires Exeter City to win, Leyton Orient to lose for that to happen. And that's just, how it's going to be. In terms of the top, almost everything is confirmed. Top 2's already been confirmed. In fact, Lincoln City and Cardiff City, they are not going to change. They are first and second. That is just how it's going to be. Bolton Wanderers have confirmed to be in the playoffs, but it's still a fight going on right now. Luton Town still have a chance of getting into the playoffs, as do Plymouth Argyle. So still a bit of work to do for Stevenage, Bradford and Stockport to stay in the playoff picture with 1 game to go. And then we move on into the Championship, because we now have that big picture of everything pretty much confirmed. Like I say, Oxford United have been confirmed to be relegated, 4 points between them and West Bromwich Albion, with only 3 points to play for. In terms of the top 2, though, in terms of the playoffs, though, we've still got a lot to go. Let's start off with that top 2. We are still in a situation where Ipswich Town, Middlesbrough and Millwall could still end up second. Still. Madness. Anything could happen in terms of that, of any of them finishing in second. Oh, and by the way, let's just add a little bit more feistiness. Wrexham, Hull City, Derby County. 1 point between them for the final playoff place. Again, another crazy situation. And who has the advantage? Derby County. The team in 8th are the ones that have the momentum. And Wrexham and Hull City will have to fight to get that win that will get them into the playoff picture. A lot to play for. The last day, the great thing about the last day when it comes to the leagues is that they all get played at exactly the same time. So every minute counts. in terms of the goals coming in. So let's start off now looking at the Premier League, because this is important to really look into. Yes, Arsenal are now top again, but Manchester City have that game in hand. That is important information, that nothing's changed. Man City still sort of have the upper hand, but that's just how it is. Manchester United still. It's unlikely, but they still have a chance of winning the title. They are 12 points behind Arsenal. There are 16 to play for. Yeah, probably not going to... Sorry, 12 points to play for, sorry. Probably not going to happen. But in terms of the Champions League places, 4th and 5th, it looks tied up, but there's still a battle between who will finish 4th and who will finish 5th. Because with Aston Villa losing and Liverpool winning, Liverpool now ahead. And it won't take much. All it takes is a slip up from Manchester United. And we've got a 3-horse race, all potentially on the same points, battling for 3rd, which I think is a bit fun to watch. And then when it comes to the rest of the European picture, Brighton still have that hold on 6th place. Bournemouth still going strong. Chelsea, still not great for them. Brentford, still not great for them. We still have it where, because of it, I mean, anyone from 6th to 12th probably still has a chance of getting European football, and that is quite impressive. And actually, because Crystal Palace have a game in hand, admittedly against Manchester City, they're still in it as well, which is crazy to me. And then when it comes to the relegation picture, well, here's the situation. Tottenham Hotspur, West Ham United still slugging it out between themselves. Nottingham Forest have now opened up a gap. They now have a 5-point gap to Tottenham Hotspur, with momentum on their side. And there's still a bit of momentum at Leeds. But this is actually an important part of the table to be looking at, because here's the thing when it comes to the Premier League, and actually any sort of league, is that you end up with teams that are basically blind spots. Now, normally those blind spots are teams that are doing well. Like, you don't realise how good they are until they overtake a Big Six team, right? That sort of thing of, everyone... Brighton was everyone's blind spot a few years ago, until everyone realised, oh, wait, no, they're in Europa League. And, yes, you get those surprise stories, but, that blind spot normally happens when it's a small team that is surprising everyone. But we have a bit more of a negative blind spot here, because in this relegation picture, everyone has been focusing on Tottenham Hotspur, of course, because it's funny. Everyone's been focusing on West Ham. Of course, they've been in the bottom 3 up until a few weeks ago, so of course that makes sense. Nottingham Forest as well, been a car crash for most of the season, doing well in the past few weeks. And Leeds United, Daniel Farker, the manager, had his job at risk from the start. It looked messy and, so understandable they were in the relegation picture. But the blind spot here is Newcastle United. Now, granted, it's unlikely that Newcastle will get relegated. They are 8 points ahead of Tottenham Hotspur. We basically need a winning streak from Tottenham Hotspur, which is unlikely. A winning streak from West Ham United, which is kind of unlikely. Nottingham Forest getting 1 win more than Newcastle, which is possible. Leeds United getting better results than Newcastle, which again is possible. So maybe we're talking 16th. But here's the thing for Newcastle. Look at that form. 4 losses in a row. That's scary. Very, very scary. In fact, even Wolverhampton Wanderers have a better record over the past 5 games than Newcastle United. Now, once again, I don't think that this is possible. I don't think it's possible that Newcastle United could end up relegated. They've got just enough points on the board, similar to Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur last season, where they can hold on. But there's no doubt about it that Newcastle have had a rough season this season. I mean, they've had their plus points, but it has been a rough season. Losing twice to their rival Sunderland certainly didn't help. But why? Why are we in this situation? Like, this is the wealthiest club in the world, thanks to the Saudi Arabian ownership. Like, why? Why are we in this situation? Is Eddie Howe the problem? Is the team spirit the problem? Is St James's Park the problem? What is the problem? Well, the problem is kind of twofold. Let's start off with the recruitment, because yes, a lot of comments have been made about Johan Visser and the money that they spent on him, and that and the problems there. The money spent on Anthony Elanga, which seemed ludicrous at the time. And I think this is where Newcastle have gone wrong, because this is probably the first time for quite some years that Newcastle have had to deal with a star leaving for big money. They sort of had it when it came to Andy Carroll, but Andy Carroll was still an up-and-coming player at that time and turned out to be a flop, so they got good money for a bad player, let's be honest. But in losing Isak for 135 million, probably a new situation for Newcastle. A load of money, yes, fantastic, they can spend money in the transfer window, but here's a crucial point. Everyone knew they had loads of money, so could probably play around with them in the negotiations, which is why they probably spent higher money. And that, for me, is where Newcastle went wrong. They didn't make contingency plans. Now, here's the thing. There is nothing wrong with trying to hold on to your best players. Every team does it, right? I think about Liverpool and Luis Suarez, for example. Manchester United probably with Ronaldo. Big stars, teams want to hold on to them. Of course they do. That makes sense. But it's what you do as your plan when holding on to them. Here's one example of how to do it right. Now, I can only refer to Liverpool's examples of how to do it right because of the situation, right? But Liverpool showed to Newcastle that holding on to your stars with no plan whatsoever is not the way to go. Think about when Liverpool lost Fernando Torres to Chelsea, £50 million transfer. It's probably the equivalent of what a £135 million transfer is now. It was huge. It happened in January. It was huge. What happened? Liverpool panicked. They didn't expect Torres to leave at that point. And so they just was like, oh, what do we do? What do we do? Spent £35 million on Andy Carroll, making him like this player that they really thought was the future, that he was going to be Liverpool's number 9 forever. He was going to be amazing. And then signed this winger that they thought, he maybe will take a punt on him for like 10 million in Luis Suarez. But they focused on the wrong player. And guess what happened? They struggled. Then when we talk about Luis Suarez, and we had a bit of a better plan here, because Arsenal made a bid for Luis Suarez. Technically, They should have had the chance to talk to him, but it was laughed off, right? The £40,001. But that actually was an indication to Liverpool that, we might lose Luis Suarez. What did they do? They put a 1-year departure plan with Luis Suarez. That included Steven Gerrard, the captain at the time, basically going, give it your best ever season. Show everyone just how good you are, and you don't then have to worry about Arsenal. You could get bids from Real Madrid. You could get bids from Barcelona. And guess what happened? Barcelona signed him for a higher bid the following season, and Liverpool were prepared for it. Then when you think about Coutinho, similar sort of thing happened. He wanted to leave. They let him leave in 6 months. They made it absolutely crystal clear to him, you can leave in 6 months. So he left in January, and Liverpool had already put the plan in motion. In fact, they signed Van Dijk before Coutinho was confirmed to be sold, so that the hype was already there. They'd already made the plans for what to do with the Coutinho money before they got the Coutinho money. Newcastle, though, have tried to do what Liverpool did with Fernando Torres when it came to Alexander Isak. They wanted to hold on to him. Their one striker that was doing so well, they wanted to hold on to him. In fact, they wanted other strikers to support him. But you know what? Strikers are selfish. They want the spotlight all to themselves. They want the goals all to themselves. So no striker wanted to go. And by the time the strikers had already chosen their places, whether that be Ekitike to Liverpool, whether that be João Pedro to Chelsea, whether that be Šeško to Man United, whether that be Gyökeres to Arsenal, Newcastle had slim pickings. They had not made the plan for Isak to go. And this is the bit that sounds so ludicrous, because in February of last year, there were already murmurings of Isak to go. That was a time for Newcastle to make their plans. That was a time for Newcastle to go, do you know what? Yeah, Isak, we'll let you go. In fact, we'll start the conversations with Liverpool. Get the finances sorted so that first day of the summer transfer window we can get that all started. Get that bid sorted so that we know what money we've got. And then, literally on the day that we sell you, we're already signing 2 players. But they didn't do that. They wanted to hold on to a player that wanted to leave, and that is a dangerous skill to play. It's a dangerous game to play. And so they ended up with someone in Voltemada who is unproven. I actually think he'll be a decent player in the end, but he's expected to be Alexander Isak right now, and he's still growing in that role. Ilanga's not going to do it because Ilanga's a winger, and the same with Vissa. Vissa, yes, has played as striker for Brentford, but he's a winger. So you've put all of your chips, all of your gambles, you've gone all in on Voltemada. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. And by the way, it was absolutely crystal clear to everybody you wanted to hold on to Isak, because otherwise Callum Wilson wouldn't have left. He'd have gone, do you know what, I'm happy because I'll play a couple of games then. Fantastic. It doesn't make sense what you did. But then there's the other element here, because when it comes to a big team, and do you know what, I'm going to count Newcastle as a big team here, because I really do think they are. When the team ends up being on a difficult run, a losing streak, St James's Park feels like one of the worst places for them to go to. It's so tense, so difficult, and the players will feel it. And so you end up with a situation where the home game feels like an away game, and you feel like you're going to be better in away games. It's difficult. Now, do I think that Eddie Howe should be sacked? No. Not at all. Don't get me wrong, Eddie Howe in his last season at Bournemouth, he wasn't great, and he's not the best at bedding in new signings. I think of players like Wani Turbe for Bournemouth when he was signed, that was considered as the next wonder kid and barely played. So maybe he's not the best at that, and he's probably going to struggle with Trippier leaving, as example. But I still think he's got enough that can give Newcastle some sort of bites in them. It's that phrase. They'll figure it out. They just need to figure it out, and they've got the entirety of this season to figure it out. I don't think there's any risk of them getting relegated. It just feels too far away. Yeah, not that difficult. Anyways, let's start looking at the bigger picture now, because there's a couple of things that were like these big picture think sequences that a lot of mainstream media now outlets were trying to push onto us, and have been for some time, let's be honest. The first one talking about that PSG Bayern Munich game, the 5-4. And there were pieces like this that were dropping into mainstream outlets. Is this the antidote to modern football? Now, I don't think there's any doubt in our minds who they're talking about when they're talking about modern football. They're talking about Arsenal, they're talking about the Premier League. And I've got to be honest here, this gets me a bit mad. This gets me a bit angry, to be quite honest. Have they forgotten that football is a sport, first and foremost? Yes, it's entertaining for the crowds, but it's a sport. It's about winning. It's about doing well. It's about being better than the opposition. In fact, you don't have to be better than the opposition, just get a better result than them. Like, a 1-0 victory is better than a 5-5 draw for the fans that win. And it's nuts, to be quite honest, that we're trying to look for an antidote to modern football. And honestly speaking, it feels like, and we experienced it last year when it came to Liverpool, right? It feels like mainstream media is absolutely adamant on downplaying either potential achievements or achievements that have been made. Liverpool were being referred to as the worst ever champions last season. Now, Arsenal are starting to be referred to as that. And that they are this modern football pandemic, I don't know, of boring football. It's ridiculous. And here's the thing. It's got nothing to do with that. Do you know what it's got down to do with? Why this is a 5-4 and why the Atletico Arsenal game was a 1-1 draw. It could have been 2-1, but it was tighter. Do you want to know why? The Spanish and English leagues are more competitive. So teams have to be a little bit more defensive. PSG, yes, they're in a battle with Lens. But it's quite clear when it comes to the fixture rescheduling that the advantage is still with PSG. They still have that advantage. Bayern Munich have already won their Bundesliga. So of course they can have a bit more fun. And of course they are not going to be thinking as much about defensiveness. And here's the crazy thing. I would not be surprised if we have a 0-0 draw in the second round. Because both PSG and Bayern Munich will go, our defence is a bit shaky now. Like, if anything, if this ends up being a 5-4 on the other side, guess what? Arsenal, Atletico, whoever's on the other side are going, we've got a chance here. Defensively, we're much better than them. We can hold them out. And let's not forget what happened last season in the Champions League. PSG, scraped through, sort of, against Arsenal. They're a better team, but they scraped through. Whereas Barcelona and Inter Milan played out a thrilling match that Inter Milan won. Who won the Champions League? Not Inter Milan. They were fooled. They were embarrassed. This is not the antidote to modern football. In fact, this is the pandemic. This is the worst you could have. And I'm speaking here from experience, right? Looking back, was it thrilling to see Jurgen Klopp's team scoring so many goals? Yes, of course it was. When we first started out doing the heavy metal football, though, there were a lot of 4-3s, 3-2s. I think there was even a 5-4 in there. Which, yeah, it's exciting for the neutral, but for a Liverpool fan, terrifying. I'm pretty sure I aged 10 years in one season because of just the amount that was going on. This is not the answer. And actually, that competitiveness, that modern football, right? That bad thing that Arsenal have provided to the league. Let's look at those league standings again. Are you really telling me that it's a bad thing that Aston Villa are competing in the top 5? Are you really telling me it's a bad thing that the competitiveness of the league means that Brighton Hove Albion, that Bournemouth, that Brentford, that Fulham, that Everton, that Sunderland, that Crystal Palace could all be competing in Europe? That's not a bad thing. That's bloody amazing. That is modern football. That is the thing we want to see. We want to see a bit of variety, a bit of fun. Not a league where you're almost guaranteed to know who the title winners are before the league's even started. That is modern football. And maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe you could put your comments in to say otherwise, but that is what I want. I want to see competitiveness. As rough as it's been seeing Liverpool underperform, it's been great to see some little bit of fun. I've got friends that are Aston Villa fans and friends that are Manchester United fans, and it's been fun to have a little bit of back and forth between them. And there's been weeks where each of us has been the fall guy, right? Liverpool's losing streak, I've been the fall guy. Aston Villa slipping up every now and again, mates have been the fall guy. Manchester, that's football. And let's not forget that, again, even referring to this as modern football, it's not. You know, I was having a look into this, right? Manchester United once had a league-winning season where they scored less goals than Arsenal. And that was with 42 games, not 38 games. So more games to play, less goals scored. This is not actually about balance. Yes, it might be edging a little bit away from the entertainment and more into the fun side of things. Sports side of things. But that's not a bad thing at all. No problem at all on that. In fact, we all obviously look back on the Pep and Klopp days with rose-tinted glasses. But do we really forget that there was so much animosity against all the other teams because they were trying to do it the same way and they were failing and they were conceding loads of goals and it was sloppy and it was ridiculous and everybody was having a go at them? Why are you doing that? Why are you passing out from the back? We've fixed that now. People still have a problem. This is the football we want. The competitiveness, not this ridiculous, 20 goals scored between two teams and it's, 19-18 or something like that. I don't want that. I want it to be competitive. I want it to be a sport more than it's entertainment. In fact, you want to know the reason why they are referring to this modern football as a poison and they want these to be the antidote? Because goals bring in TV audiences, goals bring in entertainment, and guess what? The more people that are looking at live pages on BBC or looking at live pages or live streams of Sky and Now and TNT and BT and whatever one you want to talk about, ESPN in the US, I'm sure, the more money they make, the bigger the deals. That's why they want this. It's greediness. But I want a sport. I want something that not just the matches are exciting, but the league is exciting. There's surprises around every corner. That's fun sometimes. Again, let me know your comments down below. I might be on my own here. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, and we're going to start seeing a bit of a theme here. This happened a while ago. That FIFA have now allowed leagues to stage a game abroad each season. Yeah, this is happening, right? So just looking into this, that there's been a draft proposal that will allow one match a season to be played abroad. One match. Now, the other thing that will allow it to say is that, host countries, they can't have more than 5 matches. That sort of makes sense. I'd love to know my thoughts on this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this in 3 parts. I'm firstly going to look at the part of where I can try and make sense of their thoughts. I'm going to look at the part on why logistically and logically it doesn't make sense, and then I'm going to bring emotions into it. So let's start off with where I could support them on this. Where I sort of understand it is with leagues like La Liga, the league in Spain, because you think because it's a Spanish league that all the teams are based in Spain. That's not true. Spain includes the Canary Islands. Canary Islands being just off the west coast of Africa, which means that away games for those teams is a nightmare, right? And so you could potentially use it as an opportunity to balance out advantages. There's also one other one where I'm like, I can see their point on doing something and my proposal of how they should apply this. But let's first talk about why logistically and logically this does not work. And it's this. It removes fairness from football. Again, when I say this is along the same theme, again, have they forgotten that football is a sport first and foremost? Do you really want to be in a situation where you're giving sporting advantage to a team? Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's imagine a scenario. We haven't had this for 18 years. The 2 biggest clubs in England, Liverpool and Manchester United, are competing for the title. And they've picked Liverpool versus Manchester United to be the game played abroad. Now, whichever way that you slice it, right, that's going to either remove the sporting advantage or going to be an absolute nuisance for no reason. Let's say it is a replacement, right? Let's say that we've obviously got the one match at Liverpool at Anfield, the one match at Old Trafford, and they move one of those matches to abroad. Let's say America. One team could claim that they are unfairly disadvantaged. Home matches are a thing, right? In these rivalries, these hotly contested matches, there's hatred is the word to say about it, right? A little bit of frostiness. You want to cause it where the away team feels uncomfortable. And let's say that the game at Anfield is the one that gets moved to America, right? So the Liverpool players will have a situation where they will be at Old Trafford. They'll have the boos, the jeers, the hisses. They will feel uncomfortable in the stadium and they'll have to fight through that. But they don't get the same as an advantage the other way round, because when they move to the game in America, it's effectively a neutral ground. Yes, there might be more Liverpool fans in the US, but that doesn't mean anything. It's still a neutral ground. Both of them are suffering from travelling. Both of them are suffering from, so it's a neutral match. So Liverpool could justifiably claim unfair sporting advantage should Manchester United win the title as a result of it. And by the way, the same would apply the other way around. And as a fan, I would hate to be in a situation where either I am moaning because I lost out on the title because of what seems to be an unfair advantage to another team, or uncomfortable if it was to happen the other way round. That's the sporting side of it, the logistical side of it. Now I'm going to bring my emotions. Absolutely bloody not, we're doing this. We can't do this. This is ridiculous. I hate it to my core. Because here's the thing. Have we forgotten what was being chanted about 6 years ago? Football without fans is nothing. Now, again, I'm going to apply the Liverpool scenario to try and make it live for myself. You can apply the same probably to your teams as well. But let's say a game that's meant to be played at Anfield gets played abroad. Like I say, use the US as an example. Now, of course, the fans could learn You'll Never Walk Alone, and you could still have the opening song being chanted, maybe a bit louder because it's more fans singing it. Yeah, sure. But Liverpool's fans at Anfield is more than just that. Like, in terms of Liverpool, where singing is kind of like a passion for them and is a love of theirs, right? It's about Boss Night. I don't know if you guys know about Boss Night. Boss Night is where they basically practice all of their chants that week in a concert, singing all of their chants, whether it be the the Fields of Anfield Road, one of their biggest and longest songs, whether it be singing about being happy that Jurgen is a red, singing about their players, singing about any of that. It's something that only really works at Anfield because the fans have been there week after week, month after month, season after season, decade after decade. Like, Liverpool's tourist attraction when it comes to the football team is the fans and their singing. That's what makes Liverpool. You are not going to be able to replicate that in another country at all. So that doesn't make sense, right? And I implore any league admin, league owners that may be looking at this video to not do this at all. It is dumb. But I did say I had a suggestion. I did say I had a suggestion for overseas matches, for matches to be played maybe in another continent, maybe to be played in another country. So how about this? How about that European finals get played in other countries? Show other countries the beauty of the Champions League, the Europa League, the Conference League. Show other countries and continents. Let's apply it elsewhere. The beauty of the Asian Champions League. the Copa Libertadores, the Sudamericana, the competitions where we get to see how amazing the Argentinian teams are, the Brazilian teams are. We don't need to wait for a Club World Cup to see how well they do. Think about how cool it would be, potentially, to have a Copa Libertadores final held in Spain. That could make sense. It's still a neutral ground, and it's meant to be a neutral ground. And you have a situation where both teams are travelling, both teams are jet lagged, both teams are having to deal with that in the week for a match to be played in front of new and existing fans that love the sport. Maybe that's an option. It's not a great option, but it's the best option I can give, that maybe continental finals are the way to go. But here's the thing. Boardrooms don't care about fans. They care about money. And I've given the best happy medium, the compromise, but I will lose my joy for football if leagues follow through with this. Anyways, we do have matches coming up. We have quite a lot of matches coming up, and some I'm nervous about. We've basically got matches being played right now. Crystal Palace beating Shakhtar Donetsk at the moment in the first leg, and everywhere else, not really many goals. We've got a weekend full of matches. We've got Leeds United versus Burnley. Leeds United an opportunity to push forward. We've got on the Saturday, we've got Brentford playing, got Newcastle playing against Brighton. So West Ham trying to beat Brentford. Wolves playing Sunderland, Arsenal playing Fulham. Then the day I'm really nervous about, because as well as Bournemouth playing Crystal Palace, you've got Manchester United playing Liverpool, and I'm really nervous about that. Aston Villa playing Tottenham Hotspur. Really interested to see what happens there. And then also when it comes to the Saturday, that's when we have the final day of everything. The Championship, League 1, League 2, everything will be finalised on that Saturday. And then on the Sunday, not really much else happening. We do have promotion playoffs going on, and then on the Monday we've got Chelsea, Nottingham Forest, Everton, Manchester City, and then once all that's done, we will be thinking about playoffs. And I think the first playoffs are they like the week afterwards. Hold on, let me just double check. Friday. Must be the Saturday then, I'm guessing. No, I don't know when it is. Maybe it's the Sunday. I don't know. I still got to figure that out. But we've got playoffs basically going on from next week onwards, where we're going to start seeing teams in more detail and focusing on them. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Hope your teams start doing, continue to do well. And until next time, all that's left to say is like, subscribe, comment, take care.